George Washington here. You can see behind me, here's my greatest plantation, Mount Vernon. A little bit about my life. At 15, I left school to become a surveyor, and that's going to be important later on in my life. At 26, I married the love of my life, Martha Damebridge Custis. A little bit of things, other things I like to do. Some of the things I like to do is eat. Probably some foods you've never heard of before. Cream of peanut soup, sweet mashed potatoes with coconut, string beans with mushrooms. Sounds really good, don't it? How many of you eat that kind of food? The other thing I like to do in my spare time was, I like to breed hound dogs. I had a couple hound dogs. One was named Tater and the other was Sweet Lips. Great dogs. I love to spend my time breeding those dogs. And we know a lot about George Washington, and I'm sure you've learned a lot about me. One of the things you've learned is about me being the president and all that, but I bet a couple things you didn't know is there's plenty of things out there named after me, and let's go through some of them. One, I'm sure you've all seen before and you all like is, I'm sure when you get this out, who's that picture of in the middle of that dollar bill? George Washington. I don't know, I'm sure you heard the story about George Washington, how he took the coin and threw it across the river. I just want to tell you, that's not true. But anyway, I'm sure you've seen this before too. This is a picture of me on the quarter. Other places you might have seen me before is, I don't know how many of you have heard of this place before is, yes, Mount Rushmore. All right, and you can see I'm one of the 4 presidents who were placed on Mount Rushmore. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Washington, D.C., but one of the things is the tallest building that you'll find in Washington, D.C. is the Washington Monument. And I'm sure you've seen that before. The other thing about, there is plenty of cities named after me. There's streets named after me. I believe right here in Aurora, we have a street called Washington Avenue. And I'm sure some of you have been on that street. There's parks named after me. There's bridges named after me. I also have a state named after me, the state of Washington. The other thing that's named after me is Washington, D.C. I'm sure you've heard of that, our nation's capital. One of the things I did was I helped to negotiate us getting our nation's capital. And in getting that, it carries my name. And going back to me being a surveyor, I was a person, it was actually named Foggy Bottoms in the beginning, but I was a person who helped to set aside that ground, and I also helped to survey it, so it's surveyed out to the city it is today. So those are a little bit of facts about George Washington. Some you knew, some you didn't.
Well, General, you are here.
I am. Mr. Adams.
Yes, we are ready to administer the oath of office, sir.
I am at your service.
General, if you will please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, George Washington, do solemnly swear.
I, George Washington, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
I will faithfully execute of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability,
To the best of my ability.
preserve, protect, and defend
Preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States. So help me, God.
It is done. God bless George Washington, President of the United States.
Finally.
Hey, I want to tell you a story about this guy crossing the Delaware River right now, and that's George Washington. One of the things that probably you didn't know about this battle is that George Washington was down, being our American general of the Continental Army. His troops were ready to go home back home because it didn't look very good for the colonists at all. Very bleak. Soldiers were dying for starvation. They were freezing to death in camp. While across this river, guess what? The German mercenaries were camped. They were living in nice homes with good meals and having a good time. So Washington, being the great leader he was, decided he had to do something. So what did he decide to do? He decided to do something that's way out of the ordinary of what warfare is all about. Guess what? He thought, all my men are going to be leaving. We're dying. They're dying. Numbers are dwindling in my army. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a surprise attack. And guess what day he picked to do it? Christmas. Of all days, Christmas. He picked Christmas to cross. And look at the water. How icy, cold it is. On Christmas Eve, he decided to cross over the Delaware River and go to the Battle of Trenton. And guess what? From his great leadership, guess what happened at the Battle of Trenton? Washington won. Captured over 1,200 German mercenaries. Captured supplies he needed. And what a great victory it was in American history. The Battle of Trenton. Thanks to George Washington and his leadership.